On the night of June 21, 2025, the precarious balance in the Middle East was, well, shattered. The United States, acting under the direction of President Donald Trump, initiated a series of massive airstrikes against three of Iran's most critical nuclear facilities. This bold military action marked a dramatic escalation in the long-simmering tensions between Washington and Tehran. The stated purpose of the operation was clear and direct: to completely eliminate Iran's capacity to enrich uranium and, halt what the White House described as an imminent nuclear threat. This move sidestepped years of delicate, albeit stalled, diplomatic negotiations, replacing the possibility of a peaceful resolution with the stark reality of overwhelming military force and, honestly, making a mockery of diplomacy. The context for this aggressive maneuver is rooted in a history of mutual distrust and escalating hostilities. For months, international observers had watched with growing concern as Iran increased its uranium enrichment to 60% purity, a level that has no credible civilian application. Western officials viewed this as a dangerous negotiating tactic, a way for Iran to pressure world powers into lifting crippling economic sanctions. Simultaneously, a shadow war had been intensifying, with covert Israeli strikes reportedly killing Iranian military commanders and key nuclear scientists. These actions created a volatile cycle of provocation and response, pushing the region ever closer to the brink of a full-scale conflict and demonstrating a clear preference for confrontation over dialogue. The decision by the Trump administration to act unilaterally represents a significant departure from the policies of its Western allies. While Israel offered its full-throated support and close cooperation, major European powers like the United Kingdom were notably absent from the operation. This isolation underscores a deep rift in international strategy regarding Iran. The American approach, favoring preemptive military action, stands in stark contrast to the European emphasis on diplomacy and adherence to international agreements. The strikes were therefore not just an attack on Iranian facilities, but also a challenge to the established international order and the mechanisms designed to prevent such escalations and maintain global peace.
This was a spectacular military success. The targeted nuclear sites have been completely and totally obliterated. Let there be no mistake, any form of retaliation will be met with even greater and more devastating force.
President Trump's address sent an unambiguous message to the Iranian government, framing the strikes not as an end but as a potential beginning of a wider conflict. This rhetoric, focused on military might rather than strategic outcomes, has set the stage for a dangerously unpredictable chapter in US-Iran relations, where the path of diplomacy has been abandoned for a much more perilous road. The American military operation was a meticulously planned assault targeting the cornerstones of Iran's nuclear program, the facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Each site was chosen for its specific role in the nuclear fuel cycle, with the goal of inflicting maximum and lasting damage. Fordow, the most heavily fortified of the three, presented a unique challenge. Buried deep inside a mountain south of Tehran, it was designed to be impervious to conventional airstrikes. To overcome these defenses, the United States deployed its most powerful conventional weapon for the first time in a known combat situation, signaling a new level of military commitment and a willingness to use its most advanced and destructive non-nuclear capabilities.
The weapon used against the Fordow facility was the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, a formidable 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb. These colossal munitions were delivered by B-2 stealth bombers, which flew their mission from the U.S. naval base in Guam. That was a strategic choice, avoiding involving allies like the United Kingdom, whose Diego Garcia base, while geographically closer, was politically sensitive. The use of the MOP was a clear statement of intent. No facility, no matter how deeply buried or heavily protected, is beyond the reach of American military power. This display of force was designed to intimidate Iran and showcase the technological superiority of the U.S. military to the rest of the world.
While Fordow was the primary challenge, the other two key sites, Natanz and Esfahan, were also subjected to a relentless barrage. These facilities, crucial for uranium enrichment and conversion, were targeted with a combination of powerful bunker-busting bombs and a volley of cruise missiles.
U.S. Navy submarines, positioned strategically in the region, launched approximately 30 Tomahawk land attack missiles at the two locations. This coordinated, multi-pronged attack was designed to overwhelm Iranian air defenses and ensure the comprehensive destruction of the sites, leaving little room for Iran to quickly rebuild or resume its nuclear activities, at least at these known locations.
The Pentagon is preparing to provide a more detailed assessment of the operation's effectiveness, with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Razan-Kane scheduled to hold a press conference. However, President Trump's initial declaration of total success suggests a high degree of confidence within the administration. The attack was executed with precision, leveraging America's most sophisticated military hardware. Yet, the destruction of physical infrastructure does not erase the scientific knowledge that Iran has accumulated over decades. This fundamental truth raises serious questions about the long-term strategic value of the strikes and the potential for unintended consequences. Iran's response to the American assault was swift and severe, transforming a targeted strike into a regional conflagration. Tehran condemned the U.S. action as a savage assault and a grave violation of international law, vowing that it would not be intimidated into negotiations under duress. Rather than capitulating, Iran retaliated directly against the closest and most prominent U.S. ally in the region, Israel. In a significant escalation, Iran launched a barrage of 30 to 40 ballistic missiles toward Israeli territory. This act of defiance demonstrated Iran's willingness to absorb a major blow and strike back with force, immediately widening the conflict and pulling Israel directly into the open hostilities. The Iranian missiles managed to penetrate Israel's sophisticated, multi-layered air defense systems, including the renowned Iron Dome and David's Sling. Reports confirmed at least 10 direct impacts in northern and central Israel, striking major population centers like Haifa and Tel Aviv. The attacks shattered the sense of security among Israeli citizens and resulted in immediate casualties, with initial reports indicating at least 16 dead, a number that later tragically rose to 24.
I never thought we would see missiles falling on Tel Aviv. The sirens went off, and in just a few minutes everything changed. We lost friends, neighbors. It's hard to believe this is really happening.
This successful breach of Israeli defenses sent a shockwave through the region, proving that Iran's offensive capabilities were more potent than many had assumed, and that a direct confrontation would come at a high cost for all involved.
Israel will not stand idly by while our citizens are attacked. With the full support of the United States, we have launched a new wave of airstrikes against military targets inside Iran. Our response will be decisive and unyielding.
Israeli warplanes targeted what they described as military installations in western and southwestern Iran, focusing on missile storage sites and radar facilities to degrade Iran's ability to launch further attacks. This back-and-forth exchange of fire marked the beginning of a dangerous new phase of open warfare between the two regional arch-rivals, a scenario that security experts had long feared. The cycle of attack and counterattack has now been set in motion, with each side feeling compelled to respond to the other's aggression. This escalating spiral of violence has placed the entire Middle East on a knife's edge, with the potential for a catastrophic, region-wide war growing by the hour. The initial US strikes intended to neutralize a specific threat have instead ignited a firestorm that now threatens to consume multiple nations. The death tolls are already rising on both sides, with Iranian state media reporting over 400 fatalities from ongoing Israeli strikes, and the Israeli count from the initial missile barrage standing at 24. The conflict is no longer a contained confrontation, but a rapidly expanding crisis with devastating human consequences and, honestly, no clear diplomatic off-ramp in sight.
President Trump's bold decision marks a pivot of history. The U.S. strikes were unsurpassed, and they have decisively addressed the Iranian nuclear threat. Israel stands with America in this critical moment.
The American attack on Iran has drawn sharp lines across the international community, revealing a world deeply divided on the use of preemptive military force. This sentiment, however, was not shared by many of America's traditional allies. The United Kingdom, for instance, called for restraint and a return to a diplomatic solution, its position underscored by the US decision to avoid using the British-controlled Diego Garcia base for the B-2 bomber mission. This divergence highlights a significant fracturing of Western consensus on how to manage global security challenges. International organizations immediately voiced grave concerns over the escalation. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres described the US move as a dangerous escalation and made an urgent plea for restraint from all parties. Similarly, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, confirmed the attacks on the nuclear sites and called for an emergency meeting. While the IEA reported no immediate increase in radiation levels, the precedent of attacking safeguarded nuclear facilities has sent a chill through the non-proliferation community. Such actions undermine the very international norms and treaties designed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons by demonstrating that compliance offers no guarantee against military attack.
Destroying facilities is one thing, but the knowledge to build a nuclear weapon can't be bombed away. If anything, this attack could push Iran to withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, expel inspectors, and go underground, just like Iraq did after the Osirak reactor was bombed in 1981.
Within the United States, the strikes have ignited a fierce political debate. While many Republicans and some Democrats expressed support for the decisive action, the move drew bipartisan criticism for its lack of congressional approval. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer demanded that the White House present a clear, long-term strategy, warning against stumbling into a wider war without a plan.
The immediate concern now is the escalating military exchange between Iran and Israel. This could easily spiral into a full-scale regional war, drawing in other countries and destabilizing the global economy. We're already seeing the US and UK organize evacuations for their citizens from the region, which honestly is a sign they expect more violence.
The attack, presented as a solution, has violated international law and created a far more dangerous problem. It has validated the hardliners in Tehran who argued that diplomacy with the West is futile, and that only a nuclear deterrent can guarantee their security, potentially making a nuclear-armed Iran an inevitable rather than a preventable outcome.